Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be doing an episode review or breakdown of episodes 3 and 4 of Agatha All Along. Okay, let's just get into it. The episode begins with the witches going down the witch's road. Miss Hart here says that she feels that she's been kidnapped and she's clearly frightened, poor thing. The coven are up against the worst nightmares in the form of trials here, and they know this when they ask Agatha, who's the only one who says that she's done the road before, and she says, yep, we're going to be having our knowledge of the craft tested going down the road. However, I think that Agatha is once again just lying. I don't think she's been on the road before. I think that's a lie she's telling people to make herself seem powerful. Unfortunately, I think the teen's dialogue here continues to annoy me with cliche gay language. To be honest, it feels like he's a bit of a joke most of the time and a walking gay stereotype. And for a show that is trying to say that people are more than just the stereotypes and witches are more than just stereotypical witches, I feel that they do a bad job of making a young gay guy seem not a complete stereotype without relying on tropes and cliche gay language. And I'm not sure if it's just the character I don't like, or if it's just Joe Locke because he's playing teen that I don't like. But I know this silly gay rhetoric dialogue such as iconic, it's a vibe, it's an aesthetic. Those lines I just feel like are not needed in this show at all. Teen has got his own character arc. He is this walking encyclopedia of witchcraft, and he is a complete mystery himself. Who's put a sigil on him, and who exactly is he as a person, because we don't know yet. And I think that's enough for a storyline for Teen. I don't think we need this silly, stereotypical gay character. As Hollywood continues to perpetuate that all gay guys act exactly the same cookie cutter type of way, I just think this is getting boring now, and gay guys certainly are a varied bunch and not just iconic and it's a vibe and all that crap. Speaking of Teen's mystery anyway, Jen asks who he is once again, and here he says his name, but again, the fancy W or the fancy M comes across his mouth. It seems that it's not just Agatha that can't know who this person is, perhaps all witchkind can't know who this person is. This is where I think the show kind of works against itself here, with Teen being a walking encyclopedia of witchcraft. Teen is the person saying, oh, what's a sigil here, as if he wouldn't know. Which I don't think fits the character. If the character is this, like I say, walking encyclopedia of witchcraft, he would clearly know what a sigil is. It's one of the easiest things to know when you first get into witchcraft, or pagan, or Wiccan, or anything like that. However, I think this is the show's way of obviously trying to get people to know or learn about witchcraft, and I don't have anything against that. It's a bit kind of exposition-y, which I don't think we need from a TV show like this, because they do such a good job of instilling witchcraft lore into the show anyway. But we'll go along with it. The show explains through Teen and the witches what a sigil is, and to the show it is a redaction spell that hides something, in this case Teen, from witch folk. So is this Wanda's doing? It would make sense if Wanda wanted to hide Wiccan, or Teen in this case, unless of course this is potentially Agatha putting the sigil on him to hide Nicholas Scratch, her son, from Mephisto. Or possibly did Rio put on the sigil so that she could hide Nicholas Scratch from Agatha, which is his mum. And is this potentially why Agatha hates Rio? Anyway, as the coven seems to be questioning why they're on the road, Agatha steps into a leadership role and tells them all exactly and reminds them again why they're on the road. But as Agatha turns to Miss Hart to say why she's on the road, which would be very interesting to know why Agatha would come up with a reason as to why Miss Hart would be on the road, other than the fact she got tricked by Agatha. She goes to say it, but Miss Hart's not there. And where is Miss Hart? Well, she's run off the road. She's run off the track. She's run off the witch's road completely. She's instead gone to sit down and take a break, and she's put a purse next to her. And her purse has been sucked in to the gloopy, bubbly, muddy mess, which then Sharon herself finds herself sinking down. But who saves her? It's Alice. And this, I think, is a good lesson for the witches, which Agatha points out, is to not step off the witch's road, because it is perilous if you do so. Not long after this, the group then kind of walk, because they have no choice other than to walk through the witch's road, and they come across a beach house in the distance. Here the group kind of cautiously walk up to this beach house. They're not running towards it, they're not excited about it, they're just curious and cautious. However, this is a kind of cool thing. Each of these houses seem to have doors, and on the doors are moon cycles. This one is a full moon, which Teen says, being the walking encyclopedia, he says it's full. So this is the water phase. And this trial apparently is for Jen, the potions witch. Also, the fact it's a water phase is a heavy foreshadow of what's to come in this episode for them. However, I found it funny as they walk in. As we saw in the trailers, it looks like they go through different costumes throughout the episodes. And now we got an answer as to why. When they begin a trial, not only does the surrounding change, but also so does their clothes. In this case, it's a modern day kind of beach house, Instagram, social media influencer style clothes they have on. Very sailor kind of boy for teen. And otherwise it looks kind of maybe Kardashian-like as well. Teen here has another disappointing bit of dialogue where he says, it's giving middle-aged second chance at love vibes, and I'm here for it. Again, I can't help but eye roll at this. It just feels like a hot word bingo for gay cliche. Also, it kind of feels like how many TikTok, social media, Gen Z words do we know as a writer's room and Jack Schaefer, as not the age of a TikTok person, and how many words do we know that we think 16-year-olds say, and let's smush them all into one line to make the 16-year-old teen sound plausible. But I'm not sure how plausible it comes off, and as I say, it's pissing me off. I don't think this is reflective, as I say, of the gay community. I personally don't know any gay people who actually talk like this in person, unless it's a drag queen who is out of drag. It's giving middle age, it's giving this, that, and the other. Like I say, the only gays I know who talk like that are drag queens. In or out of drag, but not otherwise. I've never heard a gay person in my life use this kind of language. However, Jen has a really good line here where she says, I look like one of my customers. She is quite funny, and she continues to be in this series so far. I really enjoy Jen. But here, the group realize that the windows and doors that previously let them in are now locked and they can't get out. Dun dun dun! So the Coven are now realizing they are in danger. However, Sharon Davis is just having a good old time saying, bury me in that kitchen, which later on the episode is quite ironic, shall we say. However, getting onto the trial, they find a letter, and this letter kicks off a trial with a little riddle. And the riddle is as follows. My age has value, I'm no fun alone, I mess with your mind, my tricks are well known. Now, this obviously is wine. How did the group guess it? Well, Sharon Davis provides some comedy gold again by going, wine! But that's only because she turned around and saw wine. She didn't actually, I don't think she was even paying attention or listening to whatever Jen was talking about in reference to the riddle. Sharon just kind of looked around and she's like, I'm done. I just want some wine. Just get me out of this place. And she instantly goes to pour herself some wine, but is stopped. Because is this possibly a trick? I think this is what Agatha feels. Is this perhaps a poison apple in disguise? Well, Agatha seems to think so, that this is a poison apple in disguise, but she goes, let's drink it anyway. Yay for wine. And Teen says, I'm going to go find a corkscrew. And Jen here quickly goes with Teen to go find it, to bestow upon him some wisdom. Here, Jen offers advice and says, watch your back in regards to Agatha. She then drops some information saying, did you know she traded her own son in for the Book of the Damned, which is the Darkhold. Teen, however, doesn't believe this and kind of looks momentarily hurt by this. Again, I feel like this is potentially the show being like, this is Nicholas Scratch grown up after being traded in by Agatha to Mephisto, possibly, for the Darkhold, and he kind of maybe has his memory wiped and he doesn't know who he is. And I think the fact he looks a little hurt here is kind of suggesting there's more to him and Agatha. Their connection is stronger than just a random teenager that broke into her house in the first episode while she was in her crime drama cuckoo land. And again, I feel like the show, it is about Agatha, and it would be strange to have Wanda's son show up in a show that's about Agatha. It makes sense to have it be Nicholas Scratch. Jen continues to worry Teen, though, by saying no one really knows what happened to Nicholas Scratch. She says he might be dead, he might be a demon, or an agent of Mephisto. Look at Jen coming through doing my job and giving you references to Mephisto without me even having to dig it up for you. I think this is actually perhaps now a third or fourth mystery of the show. We have whose hair is in Agatha's brooch, who is Teen, and what happened to Nicholas Scratch. It is our fourth one. Who put the sigil on Teen? And I want to know the answer to all these questions by the end of the show. And I think if you're going to do a TV series and it's got mystery, unless you're going for a second season, answer it in the first season, because you're not promising that people are going to come back and watch a second one. So give people at least enough answers for them to be satisfied with a TV show. Jen then finds this corkscrew and they take it back to the Coven, who are ready to drink their wine. Agatha has a funny line here as they kind of stand around the wine pondering on whether it's poison or not, and Agatha says, if you're waiting for a charcuterie board, I don't think it's coming. Then they pour out wine, all except from Teen, who didn't get any, and Mrs. Davis downs hers instantly, and then she kind of looks at them and says, I've had a very long day, don't judge me. And then a timer of 30 minutes begins. The trial has begun, and this one is, as I say, Jen's trial. Also worth noting here, to stop Teen from drinking any wine, Sharon takes the leftover wine and drinks it, so she gives herself a second glass of the poison wine. But as the others do drink the wine, Agatha is the only one who doesn't, as she tips it away. However, unfortunately for Agatha, her glass refills itself without her knowing. Whilst they kind of linger on the sofa pondering what's going to happen, Alice and Teen chat, and they bond here. Alice has got like a tattoo on her forearm, and it is a protection kind of tattoo that Lorna Wu made Alice get when they were on tour. This was because all of the women in Lorna Wu and Alice Wu's family are cursed, and apparently the tattoo she got is a thing to protect her. And this again is a foreshadow of what is to come in the next episode, episode 4. But we'll get to that. Also, whilst the witches are bonding in the coven, the show goes on to make some more social commentary about witches and witchcraft. Miss Hart asks, so is a witch basically just a bad girl? And Lilia says, that is extremely reductive. We are not a monolith. And I blame Halloween. Do you see any of us wearing pointy hats here? Any green skin or any brooms? I think this is a really funny foreshadowing, because in the trailer we can see there is indeed a Wizard of Oz episode with green witches and pointy hats. And of course we see in the trailers they ride on broomsticks. So it's quite funny the way the show does this. It makes social commentary about witches and witchcraft and then shows you them doing the same things anyway. Miss Hart also has a really good crack here. She says, I don't want to join the club or anything, but I would drink the blood of a virgin if it would smooth out some of these wrinkles. Again, I think this is a weird contradiction of the show where it's trying to say that witches are not what people perceive them, and then kind of has normal people like Sharon Davis, who isn't a witch, going, oh, I'd like to have, drink blood and be young and beautiful again. Of course, in history, witches have been associated with Satan and satanic rituals. So I guess that is a nod to that in the form of Sharon Davis just randomly talking about this. Again, the show is being self-aware about stereotypes on witches and continues to do them. However, Sharon's wish does indeed come true as she turns around and her face is indeed smooth, but not from drinking a virgin's blood, more like a botched plastic surgery kind of way. Kardashians, anyone? It is at this point that Jen confirms they have indeed been poisoned. And here we have another funny scene when Jen is asking Miss Hart about what kind of effects she's feeling. She says that Miss Hart is the canary for them in the coal mine, unfortunately for Sharon Davis. And a funny line here, which did make me laugh out loud when I was watching it, is when Jen says to Mrs. Hart, do you taste mulberries? And Sharon says, what do mulberries taste like, through really swollen lips and a face? The delivery of the line here from Deborah Jo Rupp is just so funny you can't help but laugh, and I did. And then here, to continue this comedy kind of acting, Lilia says, I love you guys, and the witches kind of look at her and they're like, what? And I think this is maybe because they are bonding and becoming a real coven that she said this. But to follow up that funny comedic line, Lilia goes, what? As in, don't look at me like that, I do love you guys. Then their faces return to normal. It is here everyone's like, yay, we're back to being our former selves, and Jen is worried and she says, uh-oh, we have been poisoned, and the poison is Alewife's revenge. This basically has a lot of physical effects, hallucinations, and then death. At this point, Agatha freaks out, doesn't want anything to do with this, and tries to break the window open with like a chair or something, which ends up putting a crack in the window. This does become important later. Also here, T notices that Agatha hasn't drunk the wine and says, you're cheating, you're meant to drink the wine. Agatha refuses to drink the wine, but only after Teen says, fine, I'll drink it myself, putting himself in harm's way, does Agatha go, no, fine, I'll do it myself, I'll drink it. Again, this is kind of showing care for Teen that Agatha has, and again, I think points at Nicholas Scratch being who Teen is. We then get a really harrowing scene when Mrs. Hart has her hallucination, and she starts saying, please, Wanda, let him breathe, which echoes the dinner party from WandaVision in, I think, the first or second episode, where the Harts come over and have dinner, and then Mr. Hart chokes and Vision has to save him. I think this is kind of like a really nice full character moment for Sharon Davis or Miss Hart. She then passes out, and that's it for her for this episode. Here, Jen, being the potions witch, tells them what ingredients they need to save their lives, and they have only 16 minutes to go. The ingredients are as follows: frankincense and the gut of a eusocial insect, which Teen and Alice go after. Another ingredient is a corpse that's been decaying for at least 30 million years. Jen suggests zooplankton, which is in petroleum products, like petrol from a car, which I thought was really clever. Here, Agatha and Lilia are the ones who decide to go after that. And lastly, the ingredient for Jen says is a big cauldron. Of course, a witch needs a cauldron after all, right? TV show that is against stereotypes of witchcraft. However, I kind of think this is the point. It shows how witches used to be in history and all the kind of brooms, cauldrons, tools they had versus a modern day witch. And speaking of modern day witch, instead of a cauldron, Jen looks at a sink and goes, that'll do. Agatha and Lilia go and get their ingredients, but they can't because there's no petrol because there's no car in the garage. So instead they go for petroleum jelly, and they have a discussion about the fact the only products in the house are Jen's Kale Care products. Which Lilia says, well, they're organic, right? Completely. And then Agatha says, nope, no, they're not. I don't believe her for a second. I smell a snake business salesman when I see one, being Jen. And I think at a deeper level, this is the real trial for Jen. It's about dishonesty and her being actually honest. I feel like Jen might need to own up to this to survive the Witch's Road. Here, Lilia then gets a vision where she says, try to save Agatha. But who said this through her? Which spirit, which person jumped into Lilia to say this message? Because Lilia doesn't remember saying it, and she says it again in episode 4. We then cut to Alice and Teen, who come across a massage room to get their ingredients, and they figure out that it's essential oils that they can use. However, Alice is stopped in her tracks as her hallucination begins as she sees smoke coming under the sauna room door. When she opens the door to find out who exactly is inside this room, it's her mum. Lorna Wu. We then go to Jen, and she suddenly realizes there's an actual 5th ingredient, and it is Eye of Newt, otherwise commonly known as mustard seed. But as she goes back into the kitchen, after finding the mustard seed, it's now changed, and there's a guy standing in a white lab coat, kind of looking like a doctor. Looks very ominous too, kind of freaky. We then cut to Lilia, who's walking down a corridor, and she sees a young Italian girl who beckons her to follow her. After she says in Italian, do you want to see? And then Lilia goes after her. We then cut back to Alice, who's in a room with her mum, who is going on about the fact that there's a curse on the family, and she holds a lighter, and it kind of suggests that she's about to kill herself. Then she takes some pills, which Alice stops her from doing, at which point Lorna Wu screams, I can't protect you, and this makes Alice kind of stumble back in fright and exit her hallucination. And again here, Alice and Teen bond, which I thought was really nice. I'm beginning to really like their friendship. We then go to Jen and her vision of the Doctor as he comes towards her. He says, you are an inconvenient woman, before he kind of grabs her head and shoves her head into the sink trying to drown her. Whilst he tries to drown her, he says, and now you're nothing. I guess kind of this scene, I feel like it kind of saying that maybe Jen in the past, because they're all old, these witches, they're not like young as they appear on screen, they are like hundreds of years old, so they would have gone through the patriarchy, and I think this is a nod to that. Perhaps this man is from Jennifer's past, and it's someone she showed up, or maybe it's a past lover that again she showed up, which again is not something a female was meant to do in the past, when the past we were in a patriarchy. However, she manages to snap out of it and does break out from the trance and releases her head from the sink. And lastly, Lilia's vision ends when she walks through the kinds of twisted corridors which are all viney and flickering lights, very classic horror, and she comes across the Italian girl who is now a corpse, and one of the Salem 7 appears behind her, and this really freaks out Lilia, who kind of stumbles back and bumps into Agatha, and then she speaks in Sicilian and says, she's dead, they're all dead. And Agatha here actually looks concerned and kind of reassures Lilia by saying okay, quite gently. Here I'm not sure if she's on about the Salem 7 being all dead, or if she's on about a past coven of her own, or maybe she is on about Agatha's old coven. After they all escape their visions though, they reunite together and begin making the potion. But before they do this, Agatha asks, what is that? And the group realise that the beach house is now submerged underwater. The sea has come over them and swept them away, which I told you would be foreshadowing with the moon, the full moon being the water phase on the door, and now they're completely submerged underwater. After adding the ingredients into the sink, the cauldron, and boiling it, because Teen finds something to help boil the ingredients together, Jen says everyone needs to put a pluck of their hair, a single strand of their hair, into it to finish off the ingredients, which again is kind of very, very witchy, kind of very Harry Potter with the potion that makes you turn into whoever you want as long as you have a strand of their hair. At this point though, Agatha gets her vision, and her vision is of a cot and a crying baby. However, when she goes to soothe the baby and takes away the covers, it's not Nicholas Scratch, her son, who we can hear crying. It is actually the Darkhold. Here it kind of reaffirms to us maybe that Agatha has actually swapped out Nicholas for the Darkhold. At least that's what the hallucination seems to be saying. Also here, Agatha is really sad and begins to get very emotional and cry, and then Jen snaps her back into reality by asking for a piece of her hair. After they put their hair in, Jen says for everyone to clasp hands and to set their intentions, and I think this is good. Again, it feels like Jack Schaefer's done homework on witchy people and pagan, etc., because you do indeed, as a modern day witch, pagan, whatever, you do when you make a spell, set your intentions. I thought that was well done. That's a good line from Jen. It makes her feel like a believably modern witch. The potion then turns like a cerulean colour, or is it perhaps green? They don't actually know, and they wonder if the potion has worked. But of course it hasn't, because who is behind them on the table, buried in the kitchen? It is Mrs. Hart, who they don't have a lock of hair for, and who hasn't participated in trying to save the coven. The line becomes quite literal, bury me in the kitchen at this point, poor Miss Hart. Oh, here Jen actually has a small breakdown as the clock begins to tick down. She says, there was a time I would be able to just solve this with a wave of my hand, but now I'm bound. He stole my magic. We're all gonna die here. And she's freaking out. Agatha steps up and basically gives Jen a good slap in the face, not actually literally, just more mentally. And she says, I have always hated you, but I left you alone because you were doing what was important. Not this kale care crap, the real work. You can be that witch again. They can take your power, Jen, but they can't take your knowledge. At this point, Jen kind of steps up and proves herself and saves them, and they all drink and save themselves from the poison, including giving Sharon, like they pass a little vial of potion down one by one towards Sharon, who then is forced to drink it, which they think has saved the day. And to reaffirm the fact they think has saved the day, this oven door opens. Lilia has some funny lines here when she says, I knew a witch once who got trapped in an oven. Hansel and Gretel, anyone? Poor witch, maybe. Never we think so, but apparently Lilia knew her. Poor Lilia, knowing her friend died in a horrible fire thanks to 2 children. So Lilia is very reluctant, as are the other witches, to get into an oven. Only do they get into this oven when the window, because it was cracked previously by Agatha, the pressure of the water bursts open the window and the house begins to flood, which is going to threat to drown them. One by one they go down the oven, which then turns into a water slide, and then they are saved. But is everybody saved? Sadly not. Poor Sharon Hart died. Yes, that is unfortunately the end for our beloved Mrs. Hart, Sharon Davis, lying dead in a ditch. Literally. And that is the end of our episode 3. Okay, as I said, this is episode 3 and 4, so if you need to take a break, feel free to come back if you want, or just carry on with me, like we did in episode 1 and 2. Again, I feel like my episode 4 is a lot smaller than the third one. I don't think this is going to be a pattern where episode 1 was a lot more meaty, and episode 3 was a lot more meaty, and episodes 2 and 4 are just not as meaty or enough to discuss. However, we will continue on. Let's go. So, Miss Hart is indeed still dead. And it is Alice who actually buries Miss Hart with Teen. Again, the two of them are bonding, creating a nice friendship. And I'm wondering where this is going to lead, because things don't happen in shows for no reason at all, and they are putting a heavy emphasis on Teen and Alice bonding. I wonder what this means for them in future episodes. However, the Coven now face a problem with their Green Witch dead, because she wasn't really a Green Witch. Poor Sharon was always going to bloody die. But because she wasn't a Green Witch, they now need to get one. So they kind of summon one to the Witch's Road. And they kind of debate, is this possible, is this not? But they end up doing it. And who did they summon? Rio! And she was the one who was meant to be there all along. It wasn't meant to be Sharon, as Teen says to Lilia about her vision in the second episode, who was the last name that you wrote down. And she said, well, it wasn't a name, it was a black heart, which is obviously referencing Rio, who said herself that she has a black heart, and that it beats for Agatha. Also here, we learn that Alice's mother died on the road when she was touring, and that she died in a hotel fire. And this is where the clue from episode 3 comes in to fruition, because we saw Lorna Wu having a lighter in her hand, and that kind of suggested, did she kill herself this way? And now we've learned that she died in a hotel fire whilst touring. It is here Jen asks Alice and says, well, if you knew your mum was dead, why on earth did you come down the Witch's Road with us? And Alice replies with, her mum said to her that the road would save her, and that's the real reason Alice came down to the road. However, it does indeed save Alice, and that is the point of this episode. So let's get into it. With Rio summoned, the group here has some funny lines. I think Jen is the one that says, do I like her or do I want her phone number? And then Lilia continues to end this funny scene with a funny line where Lilia says, what a scary bitch. And in the group kind of, Alice and Jen kind of like, and they kind of agree. However, who's not happy that Rio's here? Agatha. They then quickly come across the second house, which Alice doesn't want to go in, so she turns away, and the group follow her, and then the Witch's Road kind of manipulates the house to be in front of them again. It doesn't seem like they can actually move past the Witch's Road unless they face this trial. So, sucks for Alice, I suppose. However, this door has a waxing moon on it, which Teen says is the fire face. So yes, this is Alice's trial, the Blood Witch. I think she's like meant to be like a fire witch too, but it is her trial. And she's probably going to have to face her demons here, and we all know that she does, in the form of that demon. Which kind of like Mephisto in the trailers for the show, but it isn't. Here, when the group enter, they're in 70s style clothing. And here Alice says, this time don't eat, drink, or touch anything. And again, the group kind of split off and look for a way to start off this trial. Lilia, who is obviously the divination witch, is looking at paintings of witches in this kind of room, and they are being burned or tortured, but because she's psychic, she can actually hear the screams of these past witches being tortured and burned. I think here she also feels their pain and begins to cry, which is kind of sad for Lilia to go through. Also, Jen here comes up against her own demons. It might be. She looks at quite African tribal masks on the wall, and we hear drums in the background, and Jen kind of looks not sure of herself here. She looks a little scared, but also like a little hurt and a bit like angered by the mask. There's also a chanting I think you can hear too, and this makes me believe possibly the he that Jen said she got bound by is perhaps the Voodoo King. Now, I'm not going to be saying his name, certainly not at 1 o'clock in the morning, my time, because I'm quite superstitious sometimes. So if you don't know his name, feel free to Google it, but I'm not going to be saying his name for this review. Hopefully you just know who I'm on about, the Voodoo King. And I think that's, as I say, who took her magic. Also, I think really interestingly here, Alice is looking up some posters on the wall, and you can see it says Black Cat Music Hall, New Orleans, May 21st, 1977. So we are in the 70s and we've now got a date. Also, I think it's a nice little nod to a stereotypical witch familiar, which is a black cat, of course. They have to have green eyes. Also, New Orleans is quite affiliated with witchcraft and black magic, the Day of the Dead, etc. And I think that's really cool that they included New Orleans. Here too is a poster of Fleetwood Mac, and of course Stevie Nicks, one of the lead singers of Fleetwood Mac, is in real life a white witch. So I thought that was also a really cool inclusion on the wall. This wall and the background of most of these episodes seem to be jam-packed with witch lore and knowledge, and unless you look out for it and can see it, you kind of miss it. But it's kind of nice to see that it has been included. Here, Alice and Lilia get to talking, and Lilia has another vision or a voice come through and speak through her. This time it says, which is it? Am I wispy or am I kooky? She then turns directly to Alice and says, Alice, don't. But doesn't recall saying this, and Alice is quite freaked out by this. And when Alice asks her, don't what? Lilia is like, I don't know what you're on about. Could this potentially be Lorna Wu coming through and speaking through Lilia to her daughter? But what is she saying Alice don't about? Maybe this will be answered for us in the next episode or one of the future episodes that Alice could be in. We then cut to Agatha and Rio talking in like a studio booth, like in the part where the directors would be, not the musicians performing. And Rio here says, I'm feeling impatient. I'm feeling like I want to cause some damage. And she asks Agatha, why did you bring that boy? Again, referencing Teen. Agatha says, many hands, as in many hands make light work. But why did she bring it? We don't actually know yet, and we still don't know yet why she brought Teen with her, other than the fact that Teen said he wants to go and kind of instigated them all going down the Witch's Road himself. I'm willing to bet here as well, even if she does know why she brought Teen, she's not going to tell Rio. Agatha here offers a truce for the two of them, and says when they're on the road, no fighting with each other. Rio, I think, is the one that then turns the speaker on, and the rest of the conversation can now be heard by everybody in the room. And I think it once again reaffirms she doesn't like Agatha and is trying to set her up. Out loud in the speaker, Rio says, do what you do best. Kill all the witches around you, one by one. Of course, everyone can hear this. And then Agatha says, then what? And Rio says, you'll get your power and I'll get my bodies. Sadly, I think from the trailer, this probably might be true. From the line from the trailer, Rio says, the bodies are really piling up. So does this kind of confirm the fate for the other members of the coven? Sharon has already died and become one of the bodies for Rio, but also why does Rio need bodies? Anyway, Agatha says, hey, that's my coven you're talking about. I don't do that kind of thing anymore, because she's figured out that Rio had the speaker on. Then a song kind of squeaks to life, and it causes them all to cover their ears and in distress. Teen, shocker, thought it'd be a good idea to look at a record player and because it says play me Which I think is also an Alice in Wonderland reference to Drink Me and Eat Me. This one said Play Me, and Teen did as he got told on the instructions and has now accidentally started a song playing backwards, which Lilia says, "We've been cursed." Then one of those TikTok things, like the things, that thing, I can't remember its name. That begins the timer, and again, I think it's meant to be half hour. Again, I think all these trials are half hour for them, and Rio kind of confirms this with laughing and saying, "I think the trial's begun." But nothing actually happens here, and then Lilia begins to burn on her shoulders. Alice here, the protection witch, draws a protection line around Lilia and does a spell which protects Lilia, and the burning stops. They then ask each other what to do, and Lilia says the only way to end a curse is to face it. This is a clear message that Alice needs to face her family's bloodline curse. Then Jen gets burned in the same way Lilia did, and again Alice draws a protection circle around Jen, and rinse repeat basically. Here, though, we see the demon from the trailer. It's not actually Mephisto, but a bloodline curse. Alice's bloodline, a generational curse, which Lilia seems sad about, but Jen is like, "Great, you brought a generational curse for us, thanks for that." And here again, Agatha shows care towards Teen when he is launched back by the demon. Agatha begins to care again and sympathize for Teen, rushing towards him instantly to try and help him. Also, Teen kind of recovers and says, "I guess that means I'm part of the coven now." The coven, now including Teen, then have to defeat the family curse by singing Lorna's ballad, The Witch's Road Song. Alice doesn't want to play this, and then I think the coven figure out that actually Lorna's ballad is not just a song, it's a protection spell, and every time that somebody's played it, it has stopped the curse from actually getting to Alice. So all of this time, Lorna has still been looking out for her daughter in the form of a song, which they now have to sing. This works. Alice is free, but just as the water flooded the other house, here fire begins to burn throughout them singing, throughout the little jam session, and this threatens to burn them alive. I think interestingly here is Jack Schaefer kind of playing with us in regards to these houses. Each of the threats so far have been real life threats to witches in the past. The first house was water, and a form of torture used on witches and women in particular was the Duncan stool, or tying a rock to a witch or a woman and throwing her into a body of water deep enough to either drown her. If she drowned, she was innocent, and if she floated, she was a witch. So I think that's kind of clever and maybe intentional. And again here, obviously witches got burnt at the stake on fire. And this time the house is setting on fire, threatening not this time to drown the witches, but to burn them alive. And I think this is kind of a subtle way of showing the threats witches had to face, and if that is the intention from Jack Schaefer and the creative team, then I give them props for that. They then escape the house and the trial's complete and everyone's fine. This time nobody did die. However, Teen collapses due to like a shard of glass that has like splintered into his side and stabbed him. Again here, Agatha is really worried and angry with the coven, and she's sharp with them. She cries and she asks Jen what she needs to be able to save Teen. Here Jen says that she needs moon water and something else, and she's able to save Teen. Agatha here just says Jennifer's name kind of softly, and is like, "I can't believe you just saved Teen." Like she completely healed him. It's Lilia then who echoes this thought by saying, "Look what you did." I think this means that the coven's powers are growing as they are becoming a proper true coven. Agatha in a previous episode mentioned that when witches of any sort of low level or high level get together, it creates a buzz with each other and makes each other more powerful. And I think here Jen is definitely getting the benefit of that and beginning to get her powers back. They then bond over a campfire and share past stories, past witchy type stories, how they got each other, how they got their scars, etc. And here Jen reveals that she was bound to that magic, and she still doesn't know how he did it, bound her with that magic. Again, I think this is possibly voodoo, and I think it's another nod for it being the Voodoo King. Well, here anyway, Alice, Lilia, and Jen certainly bond. Rio is there too, but I'm not sure she's bonding with them, and I don't think she really cares either about them. Whilst they're bonding, Agatha and Teen, who's now saved, they're bonding with each other. They talk about the sigils and how sigils are destroyed, not lifted, and how this happens when the sigil's no longer needed. So clearly the person who put the sigil on Teen still thinks it's needed, otherwise he would be able to say who he is, and the sigil will be lifted. So who is it that Teen is still being protected from? Is it Rio or is it Agatha? But here Teen kind of ruins their bonding moment, and he asks what happened to Agatha's son. She did not like this question and goes to join the other witches. While she joins them, I think the group can instantly sense that something more is happening between Agatha and Teen, and they kind of gently support her in this. And I think here Agatha actually genuinely bonds with these witches. She genuinely laughs with them, and she shows them her scar, and joins in with the witchy battle scar stories. On Agatha's face, you can see if she's questioning if she is actually being accepted and by witches, and if she's actually making friends, possibly for the first time, properly. Maybe she's accepting she doesn't have to be alone. And I think this is nice to see a more softer side to Agatha. Of course, in the comics, she's not always a villain, and she's caring towards Scarlet Witch. So it's nice to see the more softer, truer version of the comic, accurate version of Agatha. Rio here says that she also has a scar, and Agatha, being her ex, is like, no, you don't. But Rio didn't mean a physical scar, she meant a mental scar. As she says, a long time ago, she had to do a job that hurt someone that she didn't want to do the job, and she didn't want to hurt that person. Rio then says, she is my scar. And I think it's heavily alluding to Agatha being Rio's scar. And that's quite cute. And also here, Agatha tries to reconnect romantically, I think, with Rio, who denies her in this moment when they're kind of embracing, and Rio says, that boy isn't yours. So does this mean that Teen is indeed not Nicholas Scratch? Or is Rio throwing us and Agatha off? Is Rio protecting Teen? Don't think so. I honestly don't think she's protecting Teen. But how would she know that Teen wasn't Nicholas Scratch? Interesting. Unless Rio, I think Rio knows a lot more than she's letting anybody know. I think so too does Teen. I think he knows a lot more too. I think the only people who don't know anything are, in regards to who Teen is obviously Lilia, Jen, Alice, Agatha certainly, and definitely us. But the mystery, I hope, will unfold, and I'm excited to see episode 5, and I wonder if we're going to get more pieces to this puzzle. So far, again, I think this show has been really good, and I think it's interesting to see witches join the MCU. Other than Scarlet Witch, we've got more witches now, and I am just enjoying it. How can you not enjoy it right now, right? Especially since it is this time of year. Spooky season. Okay, that is my review and breakdown of episode 3 and 4. I will hopefully be getting out episode 5 by the end of this weekend, and then I'll be all caught up, ready for episode 6 next week. Goodness me, it is late, and I'm stumbling over my words, and this has taken me an hour to film, which will definitely not be the runtime for you guys. Alright then, I'll see you in the next episode. Ooh, I got so much editing to do. Bye!